The Ark of the Covenant, an all-powerful artifact thought lost to history. But might the prophet Jeremiah have spirited it to safety, either in the Holy Land or much further afield? Now a team of experts is following in Jeremiah's footsteps, investigating holy phenomena.
A miracle is happening, and the waters of this river are separated.
Searching sacred sites.
Maybe the people on Mount Nebo were venerating the memory of where the ark was concealed.
And probing ancient tombs.
According to the theory, the prophet Jeremiah came to Ireland. He's also supposed to have brought the Ark of the Covenant.
After centuries of searching, Ark hunters have narrowed down this holy relic's hiding place to just a few locations. Using the latest data and following new leads, we can reveal the secrets of the lost Ark. The Judean desert, 586 BC. The Ark of the Covenant is being smuggled through the wilderness to safety. Archaeologist Benny Mantell has come to this wasteland to tell the story of the Ark's escape.
Just before the destruction of the first temple, the prophet Jeremiah is taking a group of selected priests from the temple in Jerusalem on a secret mission. They will take the Holy Ark of the Covenant from the holiest of holies in the first temple and go on a special mission.
Why was Jeremiah on this covert operation? According to legend, he had taken it upon himself to prevent a disaster. In Jerusalem, the Babylonians were at the city gates, and the treasures of the temple were in danger. Said to contain the Word of God and be imbued with holy power, the Ark of the Covenant could not fall into enemy hands.
In 586, the Babylonian forces breached through the city walls. They sacked the city, they destroyed the temple, and confiscate all its treasures, taking it back to Babylon with the king. What the text doesn't tell us is what happens to the ark. The ark is not mentioned.
The ark is also never mentioned in the Babylonian annals of what was looted from Jerusalem.
There's a list of the holy vessels, the holy objects. We hear about gold objects, silver objects, not a word about the Ark of the Covenant. So some speculate, therefore, that maybe it was hidden before the destruction.
But there is one source which says what happened to it for sure. The second book of Maccabees.
The book of Maccabees is the first testimony after the Bible to document some sort of a fate for the ark. Now, the book of Maccabees in general is a very reliable source. It documents the successful rebellion of the Jews against the Seleucid Greeks in the 2nd century. If this is such a reliable source, we should take it seriously.
And the story is that Jeremiah took the Ark of the Covenant from the temple before the destruction and went with it, with his associates, to a mount related to Moses' death. And there he hides the Ark of the Covenant.
The book of Maccabees says, Jeremiah commanded that the ark should go with him till he came to the mountain where Moses went up and saw the inheritance of God.
He hides it in a cave, and then he conceals the entrance so no one can find the way to the treasures of the temple until the end of days, until the coming of the Messiah. So this is the story in the second book of Maccabees. Is it history? Is it legend? Is it a tradition they had that we have no trace of it in the Bible? All possibilities exist.
One vital clue in the book of Maccabees is that Jeremiah went to where Moses was buried. The scriptures say that Moses saw the promised land from the east, but was forbidden by God from entering.
Jeremiah takes the Ark of the Covenant, goes to a place where Moses was last seen, where his tomb was probably located, which is situated just northeast of the Dead Sea.
If Jeremiah fled east with the ark, he would have soon come to the first major obstacle in his path, the Jordan River.
The place of the crossing is situated just north of the Dead Sea, at a place which is called Beit Abara, which means the place of the crossing over. There are a lot of biblical associations with this location.
There is no definitive historical record of Jeremiah bringing the ark here on his journey to the east. But, according to the scripture, the ark did cross this river at this very spot hundreds of years earlier, when it was in the hands of another great Israelite, Joshua. This marked the end of the Exodus, as the Israelites were about to enter the Promised Land.
The Jordan River had a number of different fords along its length. Just north of the Dead Sea is the place where Joshua, with the Israelites and with the Ark of the Covenant, moved from east to west, from Transjordan into the Promised Land.
We're at the Jordan River right now. 3,200 years ago, the Israelites are following Joshua, and they're standing in front of this obstacle, the Jordan River. I need you to imagine back then the Jordan River is much wider than what you're seeing, and it's much deeper than what you're seeing, and it's an obstacle that the Israelites simply cannot cross.
It was here that one of the greatest miracles described in the Bible occurred.
Joshua is bringing priests that are holding the Ark of the Covenant in their hands, and they're coming down into the river. And the moment that their feet are touching the wet waters, a miracle is happening, and the waters of this river are separated to the sides. That gives the cue to the Israelites to enter through the dry land and enter the Promised Land.
When the Israelites reach the River Jordan to cross into the land of Israel, the Ark of the Covenant is the conductor, if you like, for the parting of the waters.
Generations after Joshua famously crossed this river, Jeremiah could have crossed at the same spot.
If the Ark of the Covenant's magical power stopped the River Jordan flowing, allowing the Israelites to go into the Promised Land, it seems equally feasible that if Jeremiah was trying to take the Ark out of the Promised Land, that the River Jordan would have stopped flowing again.
Having crossed the Jordan River with the Ark, opinion is divided on where Jeremiah headed next. But why did he take the Ark in the first place?
Jeremiah is a prophet whose writings are preserved in the Hebrew Bible. He lived probably around the late 500s, early 600s, before the Common Era, and sort of lived through a very turbulent time in Jewish history. And he was probably quite an angry young man, or certainly God was very angry through his words and telling people to sort themselves out, sort out their injustices and their sins.
Jeremiah is often depicted crying and is known as the weeping prophet. He had a good reason to be dismayed.
Jeremiah made a terrible, blood-curdling prophecy to the Jewish people that because of their wickedness, because of their distrust of the Almighty, a terrible destruction was coming their way. And sure enough, that's exactly what happened.
The ruler of Jerusalem, King Zedekiah, made a terrible error of judgment. He allied himself with the Egyptians against the mighty Babylonian Empire.
Jeremiah is a prophet operating in the time of King Zedekiah. And he is warning Zedekiah, don't align on Egyptian support. They will not provide. And he was right. Eventually, the Babylonians reached Jerusalem and breached the city walls, knocked it down, took all the spoils of the temple, and took the king.
Jeremiah knew that the Babylonians were coming, which gave him the opportunity to hide the ark. But where did he take it? After Jeremiah crossed the Jordan River, heading east, he traveled over the flat plains and towards the mountains on the valley's edge. This is the same part of the Holy Land that the Israelites wandered at the end of the Exodus hundreds of years earlier. From where in this wilderness did Moses see the Promised Land? The Jordan River is the modern-day border between the nation of Israel and the Hashemite kingdom of Jordan. Suhair Demur is a local historian who knows this country well. He believes that there are numerous places in these lands that point to Moses being here during the Exodus.
This place is called Ain Musa. It means Moses Spring. A lot of people believe that the story of Moses happened in this place.
This place is associated with one of the miracles in the Exodus, the time that Moses brought water gushing forth from a rock.
After he gathered his people around, he told them, I will get you water from this rock, and strike the rock.
However, this was against God's will. In the Bible, the Almighty commands Moses just to speak to the rock.
Moses angrily hits the rock and water comes forth. And he's punished for not doing as told. He didn't speak to the rock, he hit the rock, and that violence becomes, it's suggested, one source of why he's punished with not being able to go into the land of Israel.
Now that he was forbidden from entering the Holy Land, where did Moses go?
The very last part of the life of Moses took place in this corner, because he climbed up to the top of this hill, or Mount Nebo, from this corner, and Mount Nebo is all the way to the top.
Less than a mile from the Spring of Moses sits the 2,300-foot tall Mount Nebo. The book of Deuteronomy says that this is the place Moses ascended to witness the Promised Land.
Today, if you go to Mount Nebo, it's on the kind of biblical trail in Jordan. You go up a path, and at the top are the ruins of a Byzantine church, and then you look out onto what's rather a kind of flat plain, and you can see, obviously, into Israel from that height.
The view from here certainly fits in with the story of Moses seeing the Promised Land.
There's a church that is built at the top of Nebo, and so we have a pretty good tradition that dates back over 1,000 years that gives us the exact location of where Moses is buried and where the ark is hidden.
The tradition of Moses coming here is well established. But what evidence is there of Moses or the ark being buried here? The answer may lie in the mosaics that were recently uncovered below the modern church.
The mosaics on top of Mount Nebo, they depict the activity and the daily rituals and some of the sceneries and the wild animals. They existed in this area during the Byzantine times, which is back to the 5th and the 6th century AD.
But if Moses was indeed buried here, and this church was built in his honor, where are the depictions of him?
The mosaic floors do not depict in any context the subject of Moses. If Moses and his burial was venerated there, they didn't express it in their artistic representations. But you have two cases where the images allude to the temple. Maybe actually the people on Mount Nebo were venerating the memory of where the ark was concealed.
Mount Nebo in the Hashemite kingdom of Jordan is identified clearly as the burial place of Moses in the book of Deuteronomy. Could this be where Jeremiah hid the ark?
Mount Nebo is definitely a good candidate because it is documented in a reliable source. The book of Maccabees is a very reliable historical source in general, and it tells us of Jeremiah hiding the ark inside a cave. But it does admit that shortly after, people tried finding that cave and couldn't find it. Maybe we can find it today.
There are numerous caves throughout the Holy Land because of its unique geology. This area makes up part of one of the most distinctive geographical features in the world, the Great Rift Valley. This has been created because of the divergence of the African and Arabian plates. The lowest point of land on Earth is here, the shore of the Dead Sea, which is 1,300 feet below sea level.
The Holy Land is riddled with caves. It's like a Swiss cheese. These caves often have treasure within them.
We know that Jews have been hiding their treasures here in times of war. We know that the caves were used to put whether written material or even treasures, and we even have scrolls describing the treasures around here. The possibility of the ark being one of the objects that were hidden here is, I would say, likely at the very least.
If the Ark of the Covenant was hidden in a cave in this mountain range, could this chest, made of wood and gold, have survived for 2,500 years? Or would it have rotted away? Other items from antiquity have indeed survived in this parched desert.
In 1947, Bedouin clambering around the rocks on the northwest side of the Dead Sea came across a series of caves. They entered into them, and they found lots of scrolls. And today we know that there's something in the order of about 1,000 scrolls, and they weren't in a state of massive disintegration because of the special environmental conditions there. Yes, the Ark of the Covenant, even the wooden parts, might still be preserved. Indeed, in caves next to the Dead Sea, wooden sarcophagi and coffins were found dating back 2,000 years.
In 1981, a Christian preacher from Kansas named Tom Kreutzer came to Mount Nebo to search for the Ark using a treasure map he says he acquired from a local archaeologist. This map led to a cave entrance just down the mountainside from the church.
They followed a tunnel that went into the mountain until they were basically beneath the Byzantine church. This tunnel ended with a wall, and they took pickaxes and they broke this wall down.
Beyond this wall, Kreutzer says he found a chamber.
In this chamber, there was the Ark of the Covenant. He then took a photo of it, and then his team left. They went back to Jerusalem, they returned to Kansas, they gave a press conference. He said he had found the Ark of the Covenant.
But straight away, doubts were cast on this claim.
So the famous archaeologist Siegfried Horn examined the photos, and he concluded that this was not an ancient chest, that it was relatively modern. It was a real thing, but he felt it was a modern replica of an ark and chest.
Even though Kreutzer's find was unlikely to be the Ark, what might he have seen in that cave on Mount Nebo? In any case, the Jordanian government was not amused. Kreutzer's claims would have a wider impact on the efforts of other American archaeologists in Jordan.
The Jordanian government freaked out. They had not given him permission to do any excavations on Mount Nebo, and they shut down all archaeological digs in 1981 because of Kreutzer's announcement.
And the suspicion of the Jordanian authorities continues to this day. The priests, archaeologists, and guides of this land are unwilling to talk about the possibility of the Ark being at Mount Nebo. Could there be some truth to the story in the book of Maccabees?
Is it possible that the Ark is hidden on Mount Nebo? I would say it is possible, and it is, I dare say, even probable.
Some people have thought then that the Ark of the Covenant is still in that cave where Jeremiah put it. But there are other stories that Jeremiah then went back to that cave and removed the Ark of the Covenant.
If Jeremiah removed the Ark from Mount Nebo, where might he have taken it? Ark hunters have been searching the Holy Land for centuries, but they have had no luck so far. Maybe they have been looking in the wrong place. Documents and legends point to Jeremiah going on a voyage across the sea, thousands of miles from Jerusalem. And one controversial theory says that the Ark ended up in a surprising location.
The strangest story about the aftermath of the sack of Jerusalem by the Babylonians is that the prophet Jeremiah made off with the Ark of the Covenant and finally somehow ended up in Ireland.
What evidence ties Jeremiah to the Emerald Isle? Author and historian Lawrence O'Brien believes a number of ancient Irish manuscripts hint at the prophet's arrival in the 6th century BC.
In the Book of Invasions, it is mentioned that there is a Jewish prophet, a wise man who came to Ireland at about that time. They don't have the exact year, but if we're to believe any part of the Irish annals, this part certainly could be true.
This wise man was given a title, the Olaf Fola.
It is possible that Jeremiah was known as Olam Fodlah, and this may have been a title, with Olam meaning possessor of knowledge and Folam meaning revealer. So this would allude to it being a title rather than a person, but Jeremiah would fit that description exactly.
Olaf Fodlah was said to be a kind of leader in a certain time in Ireland, and it's linked with Jeremiah very closely. He was a lawgiver, and he was a sage, he was a teacher.
In County Meath, in the center of Ireland, there is an enigmatic structure. This stone pile is believed to be where the Olaf Fola is buried by at least one 19th century archaeologist. If this mysterious figure was indeed Jeremiah, then could the Ark be buried here too? Author and historian Anthony Murphy is an expert on the megalithic sites of this part of Ireland and knows the myths and legends behind them.
We're at Lough Crew, or Slieve Macaulay, a range of hills in the far northwest corner of County Meath. Where in ancient prehistory, actually more than 5,000 years ago, people erected these great cairns and passage tombs.
These huge rock mounds were built without mortar by people in the late Stone Age. But if this cairn is almost 5,000 years old, why is it associated with Jeremiah, who lived closer to 2,500 years ago? The answer lies in the writings of the archaeologist Eugene Cornwell, who in the 19th century decided that this cairn was the burial place of the Ola Fola, after examining some ancient Irish documents.
In fact, Eugene Cornwell, writing in 1873, called his paper about his exploration of the monuments, he called it the discovery of the tomb of the Ola Fola.
Could the Ola Fola actually be Jeremiah? If so, then how did he get here, 3,500 miles from Jerusalem?
Now we have really a fascinating idea that the Ark of the Covenant was hidden at Mount Nebo by Jeremiah, but then retrieved, taken to the port of Jaffa, put on a ship, taken to Egypt, brought to Spain, and then ultimately to Ireland.
So he must have come with the ark, and I suppose he stayed in Ireland and died in Ireland, and then there's a possibility that because he was the custodian of the Ark of the Covenant, that it may well have been buried with him.
One wild claim that has been made is that the strange carvings at the entrance to the cairn might prove Jeremiah's journey to Ireland.
So Cairn T is very richly adorned with megalithic art. In fact, almost every stone in the interior of the monument has engravings, carvings, petroglyphs on it.
The symbolism carved in Cairn T at La Creux is very interesting. There's lots of different symbols, different designs. So we have to question, is it a language? Is it astronomical symbols? Is it something else?
Over the millennia, the interior of this 5,000-year-old structure has become dangerously unsound.
Unfortunately, because the gate is permanently locked, we can't go inside the monument to take a look at this stone that allegedly depicts the journey of Jeremiah. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to stick my little miniature camera here in between the bars of the gate to get a closer look.
The petroglyphs there are not unique, but complex. They are also found on stones at other sites around the world, and the petroglyphs themselves tell stories. They were not just pretty pictures, they were a language, something that today we are still trying to figure out.
So as you can see, the stone is very richly adorned. But we're supposed to believe that, in fact, what's depicted here is that there's a boat with people in it. Apparently, some of those people are alive, the ones that Jeremiah managed to bring to Ireland, and some of them are dead, and some of them are people he left behind.
There is definite evidence at Cairn T that somebody travelled. And some people have interpreted this, that this is Jeremiah coming to Ireland. You'll see a big curbstone, which has various depictions carved into it. And one of them is a ship, a curved ship. And the other parts of the depictions show numbers of people, possibly, and show the time of year. So this is believed by many people to show that Jeremiah came to Ireland and he came to this cairn.
So, could Jeremiah be buried here with the Ark?
It's a very, very great leap of the imagination. First of all, to bring Jeremiah to Ireland in the 6th century BC. But then to say that he's buried here in a monument that, without modern excavation, we can't ever be entirely sure.
No one has dug at Cairn T at La Creux specifically looking for Jeremiah or the Ark of the Covenant. But just 25 miles away, one 19th century group's efforts to find the Ark resulted in a confrontation which shook the British Empire to its core. This group identified the Olaf Fola with Jeremiah and believed that he was buried at Cairn T. They also believe they tracked down the Ark's final resting place. This shadowy group was known as the British Israelites.
The British Israelites were a group of Zionists. They believed that the Jewish tribes had come when they were dispersed, that some of the lost tribes of Israel came to the British Isles. So this was supposed to provide proof of the superiority of the British Empire and that they could undertake whatever they wanted.
British Israelites believed themselves to be a race apart. They believed they were the chosen people of God, and they believed that the white race was inherently superior and that they had a divine right to rule the world.
And the British Israelites were convinced that Jeremiah didn't come to Ireland alone.
The British Israelites contend that Jeremiah, having left Egypt, travelled to Gibraltar. He had with him this mysterious queen or princess Tia Tefi, arriving here in the 6th century BC, and that they also brought with them the biblical Ark of the Covenant.
They decided that Jeremiah wasn't the key to finding the Ark. It was the princess Tia Tefi.
Tia Tefi was the daughter of King Zedekiah, the unfortunate ruler who had to confront and lost to the Babylonians. She was apparently of staggering beauty, and the prophet Jeremiah, as it were, took her under his wing on this odyssey to Egypt, then to Gibraltar, then to Ireland, where she was apparently, in some shape or manner, crowned queen.
The British Israelites claim that Tia Tefi's royal palace might have been at one of the most famous locations in Ireland. Just 25 miles from Cairn T at Lough Crew is the Hill of Tara.
The Hill of Tara is one of the symbols and one of the most important centres in Ireland. Tara is what being Irish is about. They believe, first of all, that this was the seat of the High Kings, but also a symbolic place, a centre of Ireland.
We're on the Hill of Tara in County Meath in Ireland. Tara can best be described as a cornucopia of monuments. There are monuments here dating all the way back to the Neolithic, so probably at least 5,000 years ago. And then there are monuments representing every phase from then pretty much until now. In mythology and in the early history of Ireland, Tara is associated with the kings who are said to have ruled from here.
It's assumed that the word Tara comes from an ancient Gaelic word, but a more intriguing prospect is that Tara is actually, if you want, a Gaelification of Torah, of the Jewish law.
But what connects Tia Tefi to Tara? She, or someone with a similar name, is mentioned in the same obscure Irish source that talks about the Olaf Fola.
Tia Tefi is in fact mentioned in Irish mythology. She's mentioned in the Book of Invasions. The difficulty with the Book of Invasions is that it describes events that most likely never happened in reality. The British Israelites believe that Tia Tefi and Jeremiah came to Ireland together with the Ark of the Covenant. Their belief is that she came here and married into the line of kings and thus preserving the royal line of David. But furthermore, they also believe that the Ark of the Covenant and Tia Tefi were buried together. In fact, they believe they were buried here under this monument called the Wrath of the Synods.
But why did the British Israelites want to find the Ark of the Covenant in the first place? They believed that one group had a divine right to possess it: the British royal family.
The current royal family of Elizabeth II claim they have royal blood, blue blood, which is descended from the house of David. So it comes down through David to Zedekiah, the Jewish king, and down through the princess who came to Ireland, who then married into the line of Irish high kings, who then became part of the Scottish royal family, who then descended to the current English royal family of the House of Windsor.
Apparently, Queen Victoria received a letter from the British Israelite Foundation and actually told her that she was descended from Tia Tefi and King Solomon and so forth. And apparently she replied and says, yes, I know. And so they really believed they were going to find the Ark at Tara.
Having established where they thought Tia Tefi might be buried, the British Israelites began to dig.
The British Israelites arrived here at the Hill of Tara in 1899 and began to dig here at the Rath of the Synods behind us. Now, there was immediate furore about this. It was considered to be an act of vandalism, and moves were made to prevent the dig from taking place. So it wasn't as much an archaeological dig as a treasure hunt. The local population was up in arms about it. There were protests led by leading nationalist figures of the time, such as W.B. Yeats.
Ignoring the fact that most of Ireland was against them, the British Israelites' search for the Ark continued. Their excavations began in 1899 and continued until 1902. After 3 years of digging, what did they have to show for their efforts?
The dig didn't produce the treasure that they so sought after. In fact, all they found here, really, during the course of their excavations, were Roman coins dated to the era of Constantine. And it's not even certain whether that's because of a genuine Roman connection with the site, or whether there were local tricksters at play, throwing coins into the trenches at night to confuse the diggers.
In addition to the British Israelites coming up empty-handed, their quest for the Ark of the Covenant would have unintended consequences.
So the belief in Ireland that you could stop the British taking advantage of Ireland and taking out the Ark of the Covenant from the Hill of Tara was hugely significant and symbolic to the whole Republican movement. And I believe it certainly provided the backdrop for the later success during the War of Independence.
Ireland would win independence from the British Empire 20 years after the dig was stopped. But despite the lack of physical evidence, rumors of the Ark at Tara still persist to this day.
More recently, the British Israelites have claimed that, in fact, they were wrong about that location, and that, in fact, it's located either close to or beneath the Mound of the Hostages.
This burial mound is the oldest part of this site and dates to the late Stone Age, a similar time to Cairn T at Lough Crew. The top of the mound was excavated in the 20th century, but what lies beneath is still a mystery.
Of course, the great problem with that is that the Mound of the Hostages is a 5,000-year-old Neolithic monument. And the Ark apparently arrived, according to the story, in the 6th century BC. So they've a little bit of difficulty explaining the chronological difference. In any case, in order to dig in Ireland at an archaeological site, you need to have a licence. And I'm not sure there are too many archaeologists who'd be keen to take on that task.
Despite the issues with the chronology, some locals still believe the Ark will be found under this monument. In 2018, at the summer solstice festivities, a replica of the Ark was placed on this spot. Even though some believe the Ark might be here, Anthony Murphy is unconvinced.
How people came to connect Jeremiah and the tribes of Israel with Ireland is bizarre. What this is it's a form of Victorian-era conspiracy theory.
It remains to be seen if the Ark of the Covenant will ever be found in the Emerald Isle. It's possible that it never left the Holy Land. It may still be buried under Jerusalem. Or the Book of Maccabees might be proved right, and it may be found in a cave near Mount Nebo. Documents also point to it being taken elsewhere in Europe, or even Africa. But if the Irish legends are accurate, and Jeremiah brought the Ark to Ireland, maybe these green hills hide one of the greatest treasures in history.